lovely day. Oh, good morning. Yeah, I'm out camping in my cave here in Inwood Hill Park in Manhattan. You probably didn't know there were caves in Manhattan. Well, that's why I'm here to tell you. That's why you looked into Foregone Books today, I guess. Lucky you. Yeah, this is one of my favorite places in the city. It has cliffs with rock formations that you can climb into. Actually, years ago I was walking through here. It was after a big winter storm. And there was a path coming down from here in the snow, and a guy down there, and I started talking to the guy. I said, "What you're like from up here?" And what he claimed was that he actually lived in one of these little caves or little places where the rocks make a indentation here, where you could go inside and sleep. And he said, "Oh yeah, I bring a bunch of leaves in there," and you know, it was winter. It wasn't like super cold, but it was a heavy snowstorm, and I was enjoying the park that day. At any rate, I don't know whatever happened to him, but it was an interesting encounter, and I really enjoyed running into that guy that day because, you know, I have that kind of fantasy, like, you know, living in the rough in a park in Manhattan. And Wood Hill Park is at the very top of Manhattan. Over that way is the Bronx, the West Side Highway, Riverside Parkway, whatever it's called up here, is that away on the other side of the cliff, see? So that's why you can't really hear the roar of the traffic all the time when you're through this section, because the hill, Inwood Hill, and the cliff buffers it, so it's great. Anyway, lots of really big old trees here. And I was thinking about this book I read. I'm going to talk about Ohio, a novel by Stephen Markley. This is not going to be a positive review because I didn't really like it. But I was thinking earlier when I thought I might come here and shoot the video, is that, you know, I grew up in Ohio, and I would be like the parent of the characters in this book. And so I was thinking about coming here to shoot in this park, and I was thinking about being in nature in Ohio, and how I don't think that the trees were quite as big in Ohio as, you know, in the nature part of Ohio around where I lived, as they are here in this park where they've been protected all these years, because Ohio was basically clear cut and you know, turned into farmland, whatever, once they got rid of the indigenous, so forth. Anyway, this novel about basically kids who were born in the 80s. They're in high school during 9/11 in 2001, and a couple of them join up in the military, and you know, has all this atmosphere of Ohio and these kids in their lives. And the thing is, it's just not good enough. It's very long. I mean, I don't mind a long novel if there's really something that you know, grips me and takes me along. You know, basically positive and or negative characters, but at least well structured and interesting. the kids in this book were just, not all that interesting. And furthermore, I couldn't tell one from another. They all just kind of blurred. He has too many characters, too much of their trajectories intertwine, and I found it difficult to separate them, maybe also because of the structure of the book, where it had 4 sections, always jumping back and forth in time. And this is the first novel by this guy Markley, and I think he's just not up to the either not up to the game, not ready yet, or whatever. There's a second novel called Deluge, which is like 1,000 pages long, which just came out, I guess, this year. And the reason I'm read this, is because I heard an interview with him on The Writer's Voice with Francisca Rian, which is a podcast about books that I've been listening to for several years, and I really like. So he was on talking about the new book, Deluge, and I thought, oh, yeah, the other book's about Ohio, called Ohio. Hey, I grew up in Ohio. I guess I'll read it. And I read it, and, it took me about halfway through to really lose the thread, and lose interest. And that was during a long section of Dan Eaton, who is this sort of redheaded ginger kid in high school, and joins up in the military and keeps going to back again and again. And the war sections, I've been reading some things about war. There's other things about on my channel, the thing about World War I, fear. So I've been reading, real sort of memoir material from World War I. And, on other novels I run across stuff like that. And this one, it just kind of felt like war porn. It was basically, okay, we shot some people we shouldn't have been shooting, but there was a lot of the buddy comrade stuff, the stuff that they all go into about, veterans. Many veterans you'll talk to, oh, the best years of my life with the buddies, and that out there, and together, we're all fighting for this thing together, and you end up not caring about the cause, you care about your buddies, and it's all like, okay. So, what I was like, well, what would a unsophisticated reader think of this? Would they go, oh, I put my camera on the rock over there, and it fell off. What was I talking about? Oh, the war stuff. Yeah, so the war stuff, it was just sort of running on, and it felt like war porn. And actually, that character kind of really didn't do much after all anyway. He introduces all this stuff and all this stuff about the war, and he wasn't really integral to the main story. And what is the main story? The main story, I guess, well, there's sort of a few main stories, which is, the thing is, there's too much going on, and a lot of it is just unbelievable. So yeah, it has a story that is introduced at the beginning and runs through the whole thing. Several of things are introduced in the beginning. Something that a guy is bringing from New Orleans in a package on his back. I kind of figured out what that was by the end when it's ultimately revealed, and that was unsatisfying. The main story is based on the issue of the rape case in Steubenville, Ohio, the football players' rape case. If you remember that from a few years back, in Ohio, it was like that when I was there. I'm from the home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. So Ohio, and a friend of mine from back there just told me that they're building this big new center there, all based about football, with, I guess, more shopping, and I think they're going to try to bring tourism into the area. My dad was a factory worker there, and these are like working class kids, you know, mostly. A couple of them are kids of professionals. But, you know, it brings in these plots of terrorism. The main thing is the Steubenville football rape thing, and I thought it was not a nice thing to do to the actual people involved in the case, especially the way he wrapped it up at the end. And now I'm going to start delivering some spoilers. You've been warned. There's a revenge story. The woman who was gang raped and videotaped, ultimately, years later, after becoming a cutter and all this other stuff going on with her, I mean, like a decade later, whatever, ends up murdering the guy who did this to her, who was the main leader of the gang rape of this video thing. No, I didn't believe it. That was a male writer's solution to the problem. I don't think a woman would handle it like that. I don't think she would 15 years later, especially if she's not at risk anymore. I didn't believe the character was not fleshed out enough to give her motivation for that, to make it real. I didn't believe it. And I thought, no. So, I mean, I finished it just this morning, and basically I was getting like 20 pages left, and I almost abandoned it at 20 pages left, which is, you know, like getting pretty exasperated with the proceedings to go all the way through, and then at 20 pages go, eh. Also, there was the whole rape thing. There are things to explore in that story. One thing is the possible guilt in one of the football players, any of them, any kind of feelings they have attached to the whole thing. They're not, we don't hear from them at all around that, except this one guy who, you know, I guess is in denial and just basically a bad person, because it's revealed he's doing has done other bad things in later or earlier or whatever. The gang rape case, which is essentially, I'm going to share my girl with my buddies, my football buddies, is also figures in Never Come Morning by Nelson Algren. Only in that one, the guy who lets the other boys do it is a boxer, a wannabe boxer, another kind of idiot, you know? So that one is, that novel is just great. And that is how to handle a story like that. Of course, he doesn't throw in all this other crap about the terrorism, and it was just, you know, way too melodramatic, and I just really lost patience with it. What else did I want to say about it? There might be some more things I can think of to say about it, but I think I'll just sort of walk around now, and because I do want to have my walk in the park. I'm up here cat sitting until tomorrow, and this is not where I usually live, and this is one of my regular cat sitting spots in a really nice apartment, and really beautiful cats, one of which is a cuddler type, and you know, I love to be up here, and it's just beautiful. I love this park so very, very much. It's my favorite place in the city because it gives me both woods and city. And the A train, the top of the A train at 207th Street is just I don't know, about 5-minute walk from here. So like and subscribe. So here's another cave, rock formation up here in the park, or over like that away. Pretty cool. Climbing around the rocks a little bit here. So whenever I read something like this that, I don't really like, and, a lot of people do like, I generally go on Goodreads and hit the 1s and 2s, which I did for this one today. And one of them said it was overwritten and yet not enough. And that was basically exactly the way I felt about it. It was way overwritten in a lot of sections, but he didn't really get deep enough into any of the characters. They're all kind of on the surface and not really psychologically probed in a way that I expect in a novel. I mean, a novel, what I want from a novel is characters who are deeply probed, basically, or the environment is deeply probed. Certain things about this novel, part of it, partway through, reminded me not only of Morning Never Come, which is way, way better, by Nelson Algren, but also The Overstory by, what's his name, Richard Powers. The Overstory has similarities to this book in that it does have a sort of activist thread to it, but is a much, much better book and much more set in the world and in nature and in this one, it's in the trees, trees. And obviously I like trees if I've made the effort to climb up here. So it was not full enough, and The Overstory is much better. So if you want to read, I think it's about the same length. So if you want to read a really great novel that has some things connected to this one, I would look at that one before I would bother with this thing that purports to be about Ohio. So I think there's probably about enough for this, unless I do walk around more and think of something really fantastic. Civilization apparently has been up here before. You see these little rock sculpture things, formations. Maybe the rock formation behind me was made by giants or space aliens. It could be. Anything can happen, can't it? There's been a new birth up here in Manhattan, apparently. Have a good life, birdie. Go up here somewhere. Yesterday I saw a white egret here, fishing in the same place. This area is a kind of estuary. It fills up with water. Like this, and then when the tides go out, the Hudson River is under the bridge a little ways. Another thing about the book is that it's in essence a crime novel with a bunch of overstuffed literary pretensions. In the frame of a literary novel, it even fails as a crime novel because he doesn't have the chops or the care to go through. That's what the review said on Goodreads. It was overwritten and lazy. And I think that is actually the fact that lazy in whoever edited it and Stephen Markley. They could have gone deeper into the crime procedures, how exactly it was all going to work, added more tension and suspense to all that, which there was none. It was all just flat. And yeah, it's all wrapped up in this package that makes it look as though it's going to be a literary novel when it's really this sort of plot-driven mess. Well, it's not here nor there. It's not a literary novel or a crime novel. So it's just overstuffed with stuff and literary pretensions, and it didn't work for me. And now I'm talking about it too long in my own pretentious fashion as another pretentious Ohio dude who wants to be literary and with it here in New York. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to stay in New York, actually. It's getting to be just way too difficult and expensive, and I don't really have a stable housing situation, so New York City might be spitting me out back into the universe before too long, although I really loved being here, and my life was made in New York. I don't know what would have happened had I stayed in Ohio. I also thought about something about Ohio and growing up there and reading this novel. As I said previously, I probably would have been like a parent to these people in the novel, that age group. So it made me think of, I don't know if you've seen Easy Rider and Out of the Blue, two movies directed by and starring Dennis Hopper. They're separated by about 10 years. Out of the Blue being the superior of the two movies, but a lot of Out of the Blue, and actually I think a Hopper also was quoted as saying that Out of the Blue feels like what would have happened to the children to the child and the family had the guy that Dennis Hopper played, this idiot he played in Easy Rider, survived and grow on to have this highly dysfunctional family and this big tragedy that comes at the end of that. So I think if I would have stayed in Ohio, I would have had and ended up getting, having a child and all that stuff, none of which I've done. It could have been not all that different than what goes on in the novel, and the type of people we meet in the novel and what happens with them. So I think enough of this. Thanks for watching. And you don't need to read this book. Oh, the book has a little coda, so I'll have a coda too. And say that I was back in Ohio about a year ago, and at a function that involved my family. And I did see old friends who I knew and hung out with, like right after high school, my sort of druggy gang, which is kind of how I ended up bonding with people in my youth. Acid and pot. At any rate, those people don't have horrible lives. Looks like a mushroom cloud coming up over the bridge. Those people don't have horrible lives out there. Some of them have very nice lives and had stuck with the mill work and so forth, and seem to have some property and things and nice houses and some children that did well, and it's not as bleak at all as this novel. Everything's kind of bleak in the novel. Nothing really works out for any of them. Well, it's not really like that out there. People live there just fine, just like anywhere else. All kinds of dysfunction going on all over the place, but you know, by and large, it's just the same old American story, you know, getting by and ups and downs and the same old crap. And yeah, everything's kind of falling apart, as we all know, whatever. It's not as bad as in the novel. I'm going to walk down this trail to shoot the end of this because there's a little beach down there. It's the very top of Manhattan Island. You probably didn't know there was a beach in Manhattan. Well, I'm here to tell you. So this is a railroad bridge behind me. The Amtrak comes up from Manhattan. I'm still in Manhattan. This is the very end of Manhattan, and this is the very end of the video. I know it's going on forever. The water is low right now. I have the wide-angle lens in to catch the whole big experience of the situation here. Over there, those buildings, that's the Bronx. The highway bridge is over that way that takes the Parkway out of the city up north. This railroad bridge actually just closed when I was coming down the hill. It was still open. It opens, it swings pivots from the middle that periodically to allow boats to come through this Stipendijval, which is what this thing is called, this water, between Manhattan and Bronx. And then the Hudson is right over there on the other side of this bridge. So that bridge opens and closes, so the boats that want to go around the island, like, you know, pleasure boats, whoever, the Circle Line, which still circumnavigates Manhattan for tourists, is up there, or comes through there, and they open the bridge for that because it can't fit under the bridge. So yeah, this is, as you can see, it's a beautiful day. It's full moon tonight. I was hoping maybe I'd get a shot of the moon on one of the water, like down there or something, but I don't know. It's they say clouds are rolling in, and in fact they are. So that is probably not going to happen. So anyway, it's been a marathon, huh? Thanks for sticking with it if you have.